Why don't you take a nice long walk back to where you belong, the gutter where I found you? Marcus called out mockingly from the driver's seat, his perfect family laughing along with him. Consider this a lesson in social class, darling. His mother Elizabeth's cruel voice rang out as I stood frozen in disbelief, one hand protectively cradling my 8-month pregnant belly. Their luxury SUV pulled away from the remote community center, leaving me stranded in the scorching summer sun. I watched their taillights disappear as they headed toward their beach resort destination without me, their laughter still echoing in my ears. My name is Victoria, and until that moment, I thought I knew what betrayal felt like. But watching my husband of 3 years abandon his pregnant wife at a community center in the middle of nowhere, that was a whole new level of cruelty. His mother Elizabeth and sister Jessica were in the back seat, and I could still see their smirking faces as they drove off. It had started as a normal bathroom break during our road trip to the beachside resort. I'd asked Marcus to wait while I used the restroom, as walking was becoming increasingly difficult in my 3rd trimester. When I came out, I saw them all laughing and pointing at me through the car windows. Before I could reach the vehicle, they drove away, leaving me stranded in the scorching heat. Oliver, an older gentleman who ran the community center with his wife Martha, witnessed the whole thing. He immediately brought me inside the air-conditioned building and offered me a cold drink. I've got security cameras covering the whole property, he said, his voice tight with anger. What they did, that's not right. He paused, looking at his computer screen. And from what I'm hearing on their hot mics, this wasn't a spontaneous decision. I sat in his small office trying to process what had just happened. My phone was in the car along with my purse and everything else. I was literally stranded with nothing but the sundress I was wearing. Martha brought me some water and crackers, her face flushed with righteous anger. I'm calling the local news, she declared. People need to see this. What kind of man leaves his pregnant wife stranded, and his family laughing about it? And you need to hear what they were saying before you came out of the bathroom. I should have felt embarrassed or tried to stop her. Instead, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. Let them call the news. Let everyone see exactly what kind of man Marcus really was. As I rubbed my swollen belly, feeling my baby girl kick, I knew this wasn't just about me anymore. This was about protecting my daughter from a family that thought cruelty was amusing. Looking back, there had been warning signs from the beginning. But to understand how I ended up here, I need to go back 10 years, to when my own family fell apart. I was 17 when my father's gambling addiction finally destroyed our family. I still remember that night clearly, Mom crying at the kitchen table, bills spread out before her, the house eerily quiet except for the sound of her sobs. Dad had emptied our savings account, maxed out all the credit cards, and even taken out loans in Mom's name. We lost everything, our house, our stability, our trust in family bonds. That experience shaped me in ways I didn't fully understand until later. I became obsessed with the idea of creating the perfect family, one where trust and love were unshakable. I worked hard, put myself through college, and became a kindergarten teacher. My classroom became my sanctuary, a place where I could create the kind of nurturing environment I'd lost. Then, 3 years ago, I met Marcus at a community center fundraiser. He seemed different from any man I'd ever known, successful but humble, confident but kind. As an executive at a major tech company, he could have been arrogant, but instead, he was always talking about giving back to the community. At least, that's what I thought. The first warning sign came when I met his family, but I was too blinded by love to see it clearly. Elizabeth, his mother, ran their prestigious family foundation. She took one look at me and I could feel her disapproval radiating like a physical force. A kindergarten teacher, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. How quaint. Though I always hoped Marcus would marry someone more accomplished. We got married within a year, despite my best friend Lily's concerns. There's something off about them, Victoria, she warned. The way they look at you, like you're some kind of project they need to fix. I should have listened, but I was so determined to create the perfect family, to prove that not all families had to end in betrayal. The first major shift came when I got pregnant. It was as if a switch flipped in Marcus. Suddenly, he started agreeing with his mother's criticism, laughing at his sister's cruel jokes, treating me like I was an embarrassment. But I kept telling myself it was just stress, just hormones, just temporary. Now, sitting in Oliver and Martha's office, I realized how wrong I'd been. Oliver was reviewing the security footage, his face growing darker by the minute. "You need to hear this," he said, turning up the volume. "They were planning something big. Something that goes beyond just abandoning you here." A sharp pain shot through my abdomen. Martha noticed immediately and grabbed my hand. "Honey, are you having contractions?" "Just Braxton Hicks," I assured her, but another pain made me gasp. "At least. I think they are." As if on cue, a local news van pulled into the parking lot. The reporter, Madison Parker, took one look at my condition and made an executive decision. "We're getting you to the hospital first," she said firmly. "We can do the interview there. This story isn't just about abandonment anymore, it's about endangering an unborn child." As they helped me into the news van, I saw more media vehicles approaching. My hands shook as another contraction hit, this one stronger than before. And just then, Oliver burst out of his office, waving a printout of the security camera transcript. "You're not going to believe what they were planning," he said, his face pale. "This goes way beyond simple cruelty." Looking out the window at the gathering media circus, I had no idea that this was just the beginning of a story that would shake the foundations of the Reynolds family's perfect world. Sometimes justice comes in unexpected ways, and as my baby kicked inside me, I knew we were about to expose just how dark the perfect family's shadows really were. While the doctors checked my condition at the hospital, Madison was already setting up for our interview. "Before we start," she said, her expression serious, "you need to see what's happening on social media right now." She turned her tablet toward me, and my blood ran cold. There on Marcus's Instagram page, posted just 20 minutes ago, was a series of photos. My hands trembled as I read the caption, "Finally free for a relaxing family getaway." Some people just don't understand the Reynolds lifestyle. #BeachLife, #FamilyFirst, #PerfectDay. The photos showed Marcus, Elizabeth, and Jessica lounging by the resort pool, cocktails in hand, acting like nothing was wrong. But it was Elizabeth's live video that made my stomach turn. "We're so worried about Victoria," she said, dabbing at her perfectly made-up eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. "She's been so unstable lately. Pregnancy hormones, you understand. When she asked for some time alone, we respected her wishes. We're just trying to give her the space she needs." "Unstable?" Martha's voice cracked with anger. She had insisted on coming to the hospital with me. "I've got something that'll show them unstable." She pulled out her phone and played the security footage audio Oliver had recovered. Elizabeth's voice came through clearly, "Once we leave her there, we'll have proof of her instability. No judge would give custody to a mother who abandons her prenatal care appointments. The trust fund stipulations are clear," Marcus added. "If she's deemed unfit, full custody goes to me. Mom's foundation connections will make sure of that." Jessica's giggle followed, "And her little kindergarten teacher salary won't get her far in a custody battle against us." I felt sick, and not just from the contractions. They hadn't just abandoned me, they'd planned to take my baby. "Ms. Collins," a nurse interrupted, holding out a phone. "There's someone from Reynolds Tech's HR department who insists on speaking with you." The voice on the phone belonged to Amanda, Marcus's executive assistant. "I can't stay silent anymore," she said, her voice shaking. "What they were planning, it's worse than you know. The Reynolds family has a history of this, destroying people who don't fit their image. But they've never been caught. Until now." Amanda's revelations came pouring out. Secret meetings about managing the situation. Whispered phone calls to judges and social workers. Documents being shredded late at night. "But I kept copies," she said. "Of everything. Including the trust fund papers they didn't want you to see." Meanwhile, Oliver was working with cybersecurity experts to enhance the audio from other security cameras. "There's more," he texted. "They've done this before. To other women. And we found their victims." The story exploded across social media. #JusticeForVictoria started trending. Then came the photos, Elizabeth and Jessica fleeing the resort through a back entrance, trying to hide their faces from cameras. Marcus's company stock plummeted as investors distanced themselves. But the real bombshell came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Collins? A young woman in hospital scrubs approached my bed. I'm Lauren. I used to be married to Marcus's cousin. What they did to you? They did it to me too. 3 years ago. I lost everything, my baby, my reputation, my career. But I've been gathering evidence ever since. And now, finally, someone will listen. Lauren's story matched the pattern perfectly. A whirlwind romance. A seemingly perfect family. Then pregnancy, followed by a carefully orchestrated campaign to paint her as unstable. They're like a virus, she said, her hands clenched. They find women who are desperate for family, who'll ignore the red flags because they want so badly to believe in love. Then they destroy them. The Reynolds family's response was swift but clumsy. Elizabeth posted another video, this time from their lawyer's office. These accusations are ridiculous, she declared, but her perfectly curated facade was cracking. Our family foundation has always stood for traditional values. The video cut off abruptly as breaking news hit. Reynolds Tech CEO announces internal investigation into executive's family trust fund. My phone buzzed with a text from Lily, turn on channel 7 now. Madison was live on air, standing outside the Reynolds Family Foundation headquarters. Multiple sources have come forward with evidence of a disturbing pattern, she reported. The Reynolds family has allegedly been using their foundation's influence to manipulate custody battles, targeting women they deemed socially unsuitable. But this time, their plan backfired spectacularly. The security camera footage played behind her, crystal clear audio of their entire plan. Elizabeth's voice rang out, once the baby's born, we'll have everything in place. The judge is already prepared. Victoria will never see her child again. Then came Marcus's chilling response, she should have known her place. No kindergarten teacher is going to tarnish the Reynolds name. Social media erupted. The Reynolds Family Foundation's major donors began publicly withdrawing support. Elizabeth's country club membership was revoked. Jessica's influencer partnerships vanished overnight. But it was Amanda's evidence that delivered the killing blow. Trust fund documents. Secret recordings. Years of carefully orchestrated character assassinations, all designed to protect the Reynolds family legacy. There's one more thing, Amanda told me, her voice quiet but firm. I found insurance policies they took out on you and the baby. They weren't just planning to take your child, Victoria. They were planning. I can't even say it. But the FBI needs to see these papers. As the sun set outside my hospital window, I watched the Reynolds family's perfect world crumble in real time. Their social media accounts went dark. Their phones went straight to voicemail. Their carefully crafted image was shattering piece by piece. Lauren squeezed my hand. They thought we were powerless, she said. They never imagined their victims would find each other. Would fight back. My contractions had stabilized, false labor brought on by stress, the doctors said. But as I lay in my hospital bed, watching the news coverage spiral, I knew this was just the beginning of the Reynolds family's downfall. Ms. Collins? Madison stuck her head in the door. You're going to want to see this. We just received an anonymous email from someone inside Reynolds Tech financial records, going back years. This isn't just about custody battles anymore. We're talking corporate fraud, trust fund manipulation, and... She paused, her eyes wide, potential criminal charges. I placed my hand on my belly, feeling my daughter kick. The Reynolds family had tried to destroy me, just like they destroyed others before me. But they'd made one crucial mistake, they'd underestimated the power of truth. And as my phone lit up with more messages from other victims coming forward, I realized that their perfect family facade was about to come crashing down in the most public way possible. The next 24 hours would change everything. But first, I had a story to tell, not just mine, but the stories of all the women they tried to silence. And this time, the whole world was listening. The FBI agents arrived at the luxury resort just as the sun was setting. Through the live news coverage, I watched as Elizabeth's perfectly curated world began to crumble. She was in the middle of another damage control video by the pool when they approached. "Mrs. Reynolds?" The lead agent's voice cut through her rehearsed speech. "We need you to come with us. We have some questions about your family foundation's financial activities." Elizabeth's composed facade cracked. "Do you know who I am?" she sputtered, her designer sunglasses slipping down her nose. "Do you have any idea what kind of influence?" "We're well aware," the agent interrupted, holding up a tablet. "Especially about these insurance policies taken out on your daughter-in-law and unborn grandchild. Care to explain why you've done this 7 times before with other young women?" The color drained from Elizabeth's face. Behind her, Jessica's live-streaming phone clattered to the marble pool deck. Marcus burst out of his cabana, still in his designer swim shorts. "This is ridiculous. You can't just..." He froze as another agent emerged, holding a stack of documents. "Mr. Reynolds, we've just received some very interesting files from your company's compliance department." The resort's other guests were filming everything on their phones. Jessica's millions of followers watched in real time as her perfect influencer image shattered. "Stop recording," she screamed, trying to hide her face. "This isn't content I approved." But the real bombshell came from an unexpected source. Elizabeth's personal assistant, Charlotte, had been quietly downloading files for months. The foundation wasn't just targeting unsuitable wives, she revealed to the investigators. They were running a sophisticated insurance fraud scheme. Find vulnerable women, orchestrate their downfall, collect the payouts. The evidence was damning. Spreadsheets tracking potential targets. Psychological profiles. Insurance policies worth millions. And most horrifying, a detailed timeline for my accident scheduled for just weeks after my due date. "We've got a problem," Madison's voice was urgent as she burst into my hospital room. "Someone leaked the FBI documents online. All of them. The other victims. Victoria, there are dozens. And some of them didn't survive their accidents." My phone buzzed constantly with notifications. The Reynolds family was trending worldwide. Their carefully constructed empire was unraveling thread by thread. Jessica cracked first. Cornered by reporters at the resort's service entrance, her designer bags scattered around her, she turned on her family. "It was all Mom's idea," she shrieked, mascara streaming down her face. "She orchestrated everything. She made us help. You don't know what she's like when she doesn't get her way." Elizabeth's response came via her lawyer, but it was too late. Major news networks were already running special reports, "Reynolds family scandal, a legacy of destruction." Photos of past victims filled the screen, young women, all like me, who had dared to marry above their station. Marcus tried a different approach. He showed up at the hospital, filming himself on his phone. "Darling, please," he pleaded outside my door, his voice dripping with fake concern. "This is all a misunderstanding. Think about our baby." Security removed him, but not before he revealed his true nature on camera. "You'll regret this," he snarled. "No one defies the Reynolds family. No one." The video went viral instantly. Marcus's company board called an emergency meeting. Within hours, he was suspended pending investigation. His corporate headshot was already being removed from the company website. Then came the exodus. Elizabeth's society friends, watching their own reputations tank by association, began publicly denouncing her. The country club revoked their membership. Charitable organizations removed the Reynolds name from their donor walls. Jessica's sponsored content deals vanished overnight. But it was Amanda's final revelation that delivered the killing blow. She had found Elizabeth's private diaries, detailed accounts of decades of manipulation and destruction. She called it social cleansing, Amanda explained to the FBI. Protecting their bloodline from what she called inferior stock. Victoria wasn't the first target. She was just the first one who fought back. The Reynolds family's desperation reached new heights. Elizabeth attempted another public statement, this time from her mansion's foyer. These accusations are completely. She stopped mid-sentence as her phone buzzed. The foundation board had voted. Effective immediately, the Reynolds Family Foundation was being dissolved. In the background, Jessica could be heard wailing as her social media accounts were suspended for violation of terms. Her carefully curated influence empire, built on her family's false image, vanished with a few clicks. Marcus's final fall came during a live television interview. Trying to salvage his reputation, he agreed to speak with Madison. It went spectacularly wrong. Can you explain these emails? Madison asked, displaying screenshots. The ones where you discussed that a disposal of previous wives who didn't meet your mother's standards? Marcus's corporate mask crumbled on national television. They were nothing, he exploded. Gold diggers, all of them. Just like Victoria. We gave them a chance at class, at refinement, and they failed. They deserved. The network cut the feed, but the damage was done. Within minutes, his company announced his immediate termination. The board's statement was brutal. Reynolds Tech has zero tolerance for executives who engage in criminal conspiracy and domestic terrorism. The FBI investigation expanded hourly. Bank records revealed offshore accounts filled with insurance payouts. Security footage from previous accidents was recovered. Former staff came forward with stories of document shredding parties and witness intimidation. Lauren organized a support group for the survivors. They met in my hospital room, sharing stories of their narrow escapes. We're not victims anymore, she declared. We're warriors. And we're going to make sure this never happens to anyone else. Elizabeth's arrest was carried live on every major network. The footage of her being led out of her mansion, still in her designer nightgown, became instantly iconic. I did it for the family, she screamed at the cameras. For our legacy. They weren't worthy. Jessica's fall continued on social media. Her followers watched in real time as she was evicted from her luxury apartment. Her rent had been paid by the now frozen foundation funds. Paparazzi caught her trying to pawn her designer bags at a local consignment shop. Marcus attempted one final power play. His lawyer delivered a custody threat to my hospital room. Minutes later, the FBI arrested the lawyer for witness intimidation. They found recordings of every conversation on his phone. Marcus had been documenting his own crimes without realizing it. The Reynolds family's implosion became a cultural moment. Hashtags trended. Memes spread. Their humiliation was total and public. Elizabeth's society friends uploaded videos of themselves cutting up their foundation membership cards. Jessica's former influencer colleagues posted the truth about the Reynolds family exposés. But the most satisfying moment came from an unexpected source. The resort's security cameras caught Elizabeth, Marcus, and Jessica huddled in their suite, turning on each other. This is your fault. Elizabeth shrieked at Marcus. If you had controlled your little kindergarten teacher. My fault? Marcus shot back. Who orchestrated this whole thing? Who insisted we had to protect the bloodline at any cost? Both of you shut up. Jessica wailed. My followers are down to 0. My life is over. The footage leaked online within hours. The mighty Reynolds family, reduced to squabbling in a hotel room they could no longer afford. As I watched their world implode from my hospital bed, surrounded by other survivors and supporters, I felt my daughter kick. She would grow up knowing that her mother didn't just survive, she helped bring down an empire built on cruelty. Ms. Collins? A federal prosecutor stood in my doorway. We've found something else. Something bigger. The Reynolds family, they weren't working alone. There's an entire network of wealthy families doing this. And thanks to you, we're about to expose all of them. I placed my hand on my belly, feeling my daughter's strong kicks. The Reynolds family had tried to destroy me, but instead, they had destroyed themselves. And this was just the beginning of a much larger story of justice. 6 months after that fateful day at the community center, I sat in my new corner office overlooking the city skyline. Below my penthouse window, a billboard displayed our foundation's latest campaign, Breaking the Cycle, Empowering Survivors. The media dubbed it the Reynolds Effect, the exposure of over 30 wealthy families engaged in similar schemes. Each revelation brought more survivors forward, more evidence of orchestrated destructions, more stories of lives almost ruined by wealth and privilege gone toxic. My daughter Hope, now 3 months old, cooed softly in her designer bassinet, a gift from the tech company that fired Marcus. They'd hired me as their new director of community relations, turning the Reynolds scandal into a catalyst for corporate culture change. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Victoria? My assistant's voice came through the intercom. Entertainment Tonight is here for your segment on the new legislation. The Hope's Law, named after my daughter, had passed unanimously. It made orchestrated social destruction a federal crime, with specific provisions against using pregnancy and childbirth as weapons of control. I adjusted my silk blouse, bought from the same luxury boutique that had once turned me away for not meeting their clientele standards, and prepared for the interview. The boutique's new owner, coincidentally, was Lauren. Turns out revenge shopping could be quite profitable when done right. Ms. Collins, the reporter began, your story has inspired a national movement. The Reynolds family's empire has completely crumbled. Can you tell us where they are now? I smiled, pulling up the latest updates on my tablet. Elizabeth is serving 15 years for conspiracy and fraud. She works in the prison laundry, quite a change from her designer wardrobe days. Marcus got 12 years. His cellmate, ironically, is a kindergarten teacher serving time for punching an abusive husband. And Jessica? Last seen working the drive-thru at a fast food joint. Her latest TikTok, filmed during her break, got 3 views. All from FBI agents monitoring her activities. The Reynolds mansion had been converted into a shelter for survivors of domestic manipulation. Elizabeth's prized rose garden was now a healing space where women rebuilt their lives. The foundation's frozen assets, released by court order, funded survivor support programs nationwide. But the biggest change, I continued, is in corporate America. Companies now screen for what we call a Reynolds red flags, executives using family wealth and social status as weapons. The old boys club is crumbling. My phone buzzed, a message from Oliver and Martha. They'd been promoted to regional directors of our survivor support network. Their community center had become ground zero for our movement, saving countless women from similar fates. Breaking news, my assistant interrupted, rushing in with a tablet. They've just arrested the Huntington family in Newport. Same pattern, targeting socially unsuitable wives, orchestrating their downfall. But this time, their target was wearing a wire. I watched the footage of another elite family's downfall. Caroline Huntington, in her tennis whites and pearls, being led away from her country club lunch. You don't understand, she wailed, echoing Elizabeth's words. We were protecting our legacy. Hope gurgled happily in her bassinet, and I picked her up, breathing in her sweet baby scent. She would grow up in a world where legacy meant more than bank accounts and social status. Later that evening, in my penthouse apartment, bought with the advance from my best-selling memoir, Hope's Justice, I hosted a survivors group meeting. Lauren had brought her famous stress relief brownies. Amanda, who'd been promoted to CEO after exposing Marcus's crimes, brought champagne. You'll never believe what I just heard, Lily announced, arriving late from her counseling center. Marcus tried to join a prison social club. They rejected his application for being socially unsuitable. We laughed, but our joy wasn't about revenge. It was about transformation. Each woman in the room had taken her pain and turned it into power. My phone lit up with a news alert, Reynolds Family Foundation properties to be auctioned for survivor support. The accompanying photo showed Elizabeth's prized collection of designer handbags being cataloged for sale. The proceeds would fund scholarships for survivors' children. Mommy's going to teach you something important, I whispered to Hope as she drifted off to sleep. Real class isn't about what you own or who your family is. It's about how you treat people. A gentle knock at my door revealed Oliver and Martha, their arms full of baby gifts. We picked these up at Jessica's estate sale, Martha grinned. Everything must go, apparently. The city lights twinkled beyond my window as we sat together, my chosen family, sharing stories and plans for the future. Tomorrow, I would testify before another congressional committee. Next week, we'd open 3 new survivor centers. The month after that, my second book, A Guide for Identifying and Escaping Social Manipulation, would hit shelves. Look what just went viral, Lauren said, holding up her phone. The latest TikTok trend, influencers posting Reynolds rejection videos, turning down sponsored content from brands associated with social discrimination. Hope stirred in her sleep, her tiny hand curling around my finger. She would never know the pain of social rejection, the sting of being deemed unsuitable. She would grow up knowing that true worth comes from within, that real family is built on love, not leverage. My doorman called up, another delivery had arrived. This time, it was a letter from prison. Marcus's desperate attempt at reconciliation, no doubt. I dropped it unopened into my special file, evidence for the upcoming class action lawsuit. As I looked around at my new life, my successful career, my beautiful daughter, my true friends, and my mission to help others, I realized that the Reynolds family had given me an unexpected gift. They'd tried to destroy me, but instead, they'd helped me discover my real strength. To Hope, Amanda raised her glass. To Justice, Lauren added. To real family, I finished, holding my daughter close. Outside, the city hummed with possibility. Somewhere out there, another woman was finding her voice, breaking free from social chains. And thanks to what we'd started, she wouldn't have to fight alone. The Reynolds family had wanted to teach me about social class. Instead, they taught the world about justice. And that was a lesson worth everything we'd been through. Hope's tiny snore made me smile. My daughter would never need to prove her worth to anyone. She was born into a world we'd changed, one victory at a time. And that was the greatest revenge of all. The next morning brought another victory. Our first charity gala, held in what was once the Reynolds Ballroom, raised over $3 million for survivor support. Hope made her first public appearance, wearing a onesie printed with "Future Changemaker." Final auction results are in, Lauren announced, scrolling through her phone. Elizabeth's car collection went for double the estimate. Even her garden gnomes sold, apparently, people really want a piece of the Reynolds downfall. The local news covered every detail. Elizabeth's prized first edition books now stocked domestic violence shelter libraries. Her award-winning roses replanted at survivor recovery centers. Every piece of their privileged life repurposed to help those they tried to destroy.